Because I've seen the devil plenty of times.
He was the face of power in old Hollywood. The jawline, the voice, the eyes that could command an audience before a single line was spoken. Burt Lancaster wasn't just an actor. He was a force. His name alone could fill theaters and silence producers. But what the cameras never showed, the studios worked overtime to hide. Behind the money, the fame, and the carefully crafted press releases, there was a man haunted by secrets, 7 of them so dangerous that Hollywood buried them for decades. These weren't just the scandals of another star. They were the kind of truths that could have ended an empire. So what were the secrets the studio fought so hard to erase? Tonight, we unseal the vault and expose Burt Lancaster's 7 darkest secrets the studio tried to hide. When The Killers premiered in 1946, Lancaster went from circus acrobat to Hollywood royalty overnight. The studio saw his potential instantly. That broad grin and soldier's posture made him the perfect American hero. But in the smoky corners of Beverly Hills, whispers began. Lancaster was private, too private, and his social life rarely matched the romantic headlines the press printed. He was photographed with glamorous women, but off camera, he lived a different life, one the studio carefully concealed. Later in life, FBI records confirmed Lancaster had been quietly surveilled in the early 1950s, with agents noting unorthodox personal associations. In that repressive era, such coded language was dangerous. It meant he could be blackmailed, framed, or destroyed in the press. So publicists fabricated a new image. They staged dinners, fabricated interviews, even arranged photo ops with actresses he barely knew. To the world, he was the perfect leading man. But within Hollywood's private circuit, the rumor never really died, only buried deeper every time he smiled for the camera. Most actors were owned by the studios. Lancaster refused. He built his own empire, Hecht Hill Lancaster Productions, a company that gave him creative control few dared to demand. It was revolutionary and dangerous, because when actors controlled the films, the moguls lost control of the message. At first, Lancaster's move seemed brilliant. He produced critical hits like Marty, which won Best Picture in 1956. But power has a cost, and soon his ambition began colliding with the studio machine. Executives branded him difficult, too political, too opinionated, too unpredictable. The tensions exploded on Sweet Smell of Success. Lancaster's obsession with realism pushed him into shouting matches with writers and directors. One night, after a disastrous preview, he reportedly told the screenwriter, Ernest Lehman, "You should thank God you still have your teeth." No journalist printed it, but everyone in town heard about it. Suddenly, studios turned cold. Phone calls stopped. Budgets shrank. Hollywood's message was clear. You can be a star, but you cannot outshine the system. Lancaster was always described as the picture of strength. Loyal husband, doting father, the moral center of the Hollywood elite. But behind closed doors, his marriage was unraveling. Norma Anderson, his wife, once confided to friends that the studio controlled every headline about their lives. When he stayed away for months, the papers would publish stories about how devoted they were. When fights broke out, publicists flooded magazines with photos of the couple smiling at charity galas. It was a script, one written not by love, but by public relations. Insiders claimed that by the late 1950s, Lancaster and Norma barely lived together. Yet the studio kept mailing out family Christmas photos to journalists, maintaining the illusion that their star was stable and wholesome. For the studio, an affair or a divorce could destroy an icon's box office draw. So they played God, controlling the press, rewriting the truth, and buying silence wherever needed. And Burt went along with it. He had to. The myth of Burt Lancaster, the family man, was worth millions. He was known for playing men who commanded every room. But off-screen, that power sometimes turned dark. Lancaster's temper was infamous. Co-stars called him intense, impatient, and unforgiving. Crew members said that when something went wrong, everyone held their breath. In 1955, a scandal sheet prepared to run a story alleging Lancaster had been violent toward a woman. The issue never reached stands. Within 48 hours, lawyers threatened lawsuits, witnesses disappeared, and the editor resigned. The entire magazine shut down months later. No one ever confirmed the story. But the speed of the suppression told its own tale. Decades later, a Hollywood columnist admitted she had been warned, "If you print a word about Burt, you'll never work in this town again." Hollywood had a playbook for these moments: silence, denial, and misdirection. When the scandal couldn't be disproven, they simply buried it beneath new headlines. A film premiere, a charity gala, a smiling photo on a studio backlot. To this day, the full truth of that story remains locked in drawers that may never open. During the Red Scare, Hollywood lived in fear. One accusation of communist sympathy could end a career. Burt Lancaster, outspoken and idealistic, was one of the few who refused to be silent. He spoke for civil rights. He defended blacklisted writers. He funded anti-racism campaigns when no one else dared. And that's how he earned his FBI file, hundreds of pages long. Reports described him as an articulate subversive. The Bureau monitored his donations, his letters, even who he met for lunch. But what the public didn't know was that Hoover's men had another file. Personal, not political. In that era, moral blackmail was a weapon. Whispers about private improprieties could be used to pressure compliance. Some believe Lancaster's growing silence in the late 50s was not artistic fatigue, but fear. Friends later claimed he told them, "There are people who could ruin me with one phone call." Was that paranoia or experience? We may never know. But those who read his FBI file say large sections remain blacked out to this very day. Sweet Smell of Success should have been his masterpiece. Instead, it nearly destroyed him. In the film, he played J.J. Hunsaker, a cynical gossip columnist who manipulates everyone around him, a man who could ruin lives with a single column. Audiences hated it, critics admired it, but the box office collapsed. The irony? Many saw Hunsaker as a reflection of Lancaster himself, the ruthless producer who bullied, dominated, and demanded control. After the failure, his production company began to crumble. Harold Hecht left. Money dried up. And the same studios that once begged for his name on posters now whispered that he was difficult, dangerous, unmarketable. It was his fall from grace, the moment when Hollywood realized the rebel it created could no longer be contained. Years later, Lancaster admitted that Sweet Smell of Success was both his proudest work and his greatest wound. He said, "I wanted honesty, and it punished me." And maybe that's the truest line he ever spoke. By the 1980s, Lancaster's health was fading. A heart attack, partial paralysis, and years of silence followed. But as his strength waned, the studios moved again. Biographies were cleaned up. Public obituaries left out controversy, focusing instead on Oscars, war service, and integrity. When he died in 1994, the industry hailed him as a model of grace and discipline. But quietly, a new wave of historians began digging. Declassified FBI files, old diaries, and never-published interviews revealed a man more complex, politically bold, sexually ambiguous, and emotionally volatile. Some called him hypocritical. Others misunderstood. But all agreed on one thing. The real Burt Lancaster was far more human than the statue Hollywood erected in his place. Perhaps the greatest cover-up wasn't anyone's secret, but the illusion that he was ever flawless. Because the truth is, Lancaster's life told the story of Hollywood itself. Brilliance built on silence, glamour built on control, and legends built on lies. They said Burt Lancaster was larger than life. But maybe life itself was never large enough for him. His legacy shines bright, but his shadows run deep. 7 secrets the studios work to bury, and each one reveals the cost of perfection in a town that worships image over truth. Even now, decades later, we're still asking the same question. Was Burt Lancaster a hero or just another creation of the Hollywood machine? If you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories behind Hollywood's legends, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more they never wanted you to know.